Good evening, dear friends. Thank you for joining on this fourth Sunday in Advent. We've been moving through the Advent period on the Sunday evenings by looking at the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and this evening, the human realm, I like to call it. And this follows an old tradition, at least in our Waldorf anthroposophical Christian community setting, where one spends the first week concentrating on the mineral, the second the plant, the third the animal, the fourth the human. So it led me to contemplate a little deeper, what is this mineral kingdom? What role does it play in our life as humans? Same with the plants, same with the animals. In the realization that the human realm, the human being, is the only one of those four which incorporates all three of the others. We carry the mineral kingdom on our physical, on our outer bodies, our mineral existence. We have something of the plant kingdom in that we have life forces, we have diastole and systole, we have movement of fluid within ourselves. We can take in nourishment out of the surrounding areas and work it into new substance. We have in common with the animal kingdom that we can move, quite simply. We can move from one place to the next. We can, most animals can move parts of their bodies. Even if they're standing still, they can still turn their head, wag their tail, lift their leg, shake their, scratch their ear. Right here. And so, now with the human being, we have this many-sided being, human being. And as I was contemplating what I might do this evening, I thought of three different literary contributions that I've come to know and love over the years. The first one comes from Shakespeare, from Hamlet, a very well-known, perhaps the most well-known passage in all of Shakespeare's work. Hamlet himself is speaking and says, "What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action like an angel, in apprehension like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. And yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me, no, nor woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so." In these few words, Shakespeare pulls together a number of remarkable qualities about the human being: noble in reason, infinite in faculty, form and moving, express and admirable, in action like an angel, and apprehension like a god, the beauty of the world. And yet he also shows that the human being is capable of, you might say, self-criticism, or a very strong sense of self-awareness. What is this quintessence of dust? Is the human being only a collection of dust particles, of material? He's just said the opposite. Like a god, like an angel, the beauty, the nobility. We can see that the human being has the capability, perhaps even the duty, to see more than one side of oneself. A human being can criticize himself, especially himself. An animal might fight with another animal. A plant might crowd out another plant. Minerals, they pretty much stay where they're put. They don't really take a lot of action. So the human being is capable of self-reflection, of examining oneself, to evaluate, to change one's behavior, if so desired, or to continue in a particular behavior. Let's look at a poem by a German poet. Yeah, the three languages that I kind of know, those are the three things that popped up. So I have one in German and one in Dutch. Christian Morgenstern lived in the last quarter of the 19th and the first 14 years of the 20th century. He died in 1914. He had been a personal pupil of Rudolf Steiner, was given many meditations and exercises personally geared to his inner development. And he wrote some hilarious poems, but he wrote some very serious ones. And this is one where I feel like he has pulled together in very few words what the human being, or what his perception of the human being is. Let's say he apprehended like a god. I'll say something in a minute. Here's the poem, first in German and then in English translation. Ich habe den Menschen gesehen in seiner tiefsten Gestalt. Ich kenne die Welt bis auf den Grundgehalt. Ich weiß, dass Liebe ihr tiefster Sinn und dass ich da, immer mehr zu lieben bin. Ich breite die Arme aus, wie er getan. Ich möchte die ganze Welt, wie er, umfahren. Now in a translation by a gentleman named Hans Bucker, sounds Dutch to me. I know the human being in its deepest form. I know the world down to the basics. I know that love is their deepest meaning, and that I am there to love more and more. I extend my arms as he did. I would like to embrace the whole world just like him. One could say that Morgenstern here looked into the deepest part, the deepest, most inward department of the human being, but also saw how all of the human being fits together. I know the human being in its deepest form, not only form in the sense of dry structure, skeleton, but Gestalt. Gestalt is more than just outer form. It's also a form of content. It's how the content of the human being is held, how it expresses itself. And here, I believe he says, this deep Gestalt, this deep form of the human being, expresses itself in love. Love which we may or may not experience or see or feel. One might say he sees the world as God sees it, its deepest form, not the outer show or the outer, when we make something up or play a game with others, but just as we really are. This is the way Christian Morgenstern looks at the human being. And then a rather colorful poem. The Dutch will immediately recognize the name Huub Oosterhuis, a former Roman Catholic priest who has a particular talent for writing songs and texts for songs. This is also a song that's often sung at weddings. I'll read it in Dutch and then talk about it a little bit. I couldn't find a translation at all, so you'll have to put up with my Dutch, and those of you who don't speak Dutch will have to put up with my English interpretation. Here we go. Uit vuur en ijzer, zuur en zout, zo wijd als licht, zo eeuwenoud. Uit alles wordt een mens gebouwd en steeds opnieuw geboren. Om ijzer in vuur te zijn, om zout en zoet en zuur te zijn, om mens voor een mens te zijn, wordt alle man geboren. Om water voor de zee te zijn, om anderman een woord te zijn, om niemand weet hoe groot, hoe klein, gezocht, gekend, verloren. Om avond en morgenland, om hier te zijn en overkant, om hand in een ander hand, om niet te zijn verloren. Om oud en wijd als licht te zijn, om lippen, water, dorst te zijn, om alles en om niets te zijn, gaat iemand tot een ander. Naar verten die niemand weet, door vuur dat mensen samensmeet, om leven in lief en leed, gaan mensen tot elkander. Now, this is one of those pieces where you could think the poet just looked around in his backyard or walked down the street and saw fire and iron and sour and salty and sweetness, and yet, out of all of these seemingly disparate elements, he describes the human being. We're made of fire. We have, iron in our body. We take in what is sour. We can be sour. We can be salty. But we need salt. Without a little salt, without a little bite in our food, it's kind of tasteless, eh? And without that sour, the bitter, and the sweet. And then he says, as wide as light, centuries old. Human being is built out of all these elements and born again and again. That's the key to the human being, I would say. And why is a human being born? To be a human being for a human being. Again, it's a song that's often sung at weddings. But this has to do with every human being's relationship to every other human being. To be water. To be east and west. To be here and on the other side. To go hand in hand and not to get lost. As old and wide as light itself. To be water and to be thirst, to be everything and to be nothing. These are the things that make us human, dear friends. That we are able in ourselves to combine, to harmonize aspects of life that really fight each other. To be everything and to be nothing. How do I do that? I see what the other needs, I do what they need, and I don't really think about myself all that much. A human being can do that. A dog can't. A dog thinks about himself first, and cats are even stronger in that regard, from what I've heard. The plant will simply take out of the ground, out of the air, out of the rain, what it needs. If humans are taking care of it, that's maybe another story. The mineral is just going to be itself. It doesn't really interact all that much with the surroundings until something acts upon it. And we human beings have the ability to go to the other. And Osterhaus brings this word go in the last two stanzas when he says, we're as old and wide as light. We can be lips, water, thirst. We can be everything or nothing. And for all those reasons, one human being goes to another. To far places that no one knows, through fire that forges people together, to live in love and sorrow. That's why people go to each other. To go to the farthest expanses, to go through fire. Fire that forges union. And this is another aspect of the human being. It's not only romantic or marriage or long partnerships that we're talking about, but it's forging relationships. It's creating community. Human beings can do this consciously. The bees swarm because bees swarm, and they stick together because they recognize their queen and their hive. Animals come together because they recognize each other's scent. They're the same. Zebras and giraffes and sparrows, they all stick together with their own kind. You won't see giraffes and zebras forming community, but you will see an older human being and a younger human being, or several ages, forming community. You will see black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Native American, European, South African in one group together because they choose to do so. And they're not thinking about the outer side. What color is their skin? Or what language do they speak? Or even what religion do they belong to? Or are they atheists? Those things are important. But we can bridge those gaps as human beings. Of course, we're free to associate with whomever we wish to associate. If I want to associate only with people who wear white shirts, that's on me. I might have a hard time finding them. In the winter you don't wear white, eh? I'm just saying, the human being can go to another. They can go together. There was one other thing I wanted to say. To be born again and again. This, I think, is particularly important now at Christmas time, when we're living into this mood of the birth, the physical birth of Jesus of Nazareth. And whether we're reading the Matthew Gospel or the Luke Gospel, there are the birth stories, these two different stories. And this Jesus child was born in the physical world and went through all of the developments that we can follow in the New Testament and in the legends, in the sort of more cosmic, esoteric teachings of various streams, to become this particular vehicle of the Christ. We might say that was the ultimate new birth, preceded, of course, by John, who called out metanoia, transform your hearts and minds and your thoughts. Allow the old to die and the new to open up in order to receive the Christ from above, from the cosmic realms. This is what human beings can do. And this allows us, as Morgenstern wrote, to embrace the world as Jesus did, to stretch out our arms. We won't necessarily be crucified. I don't think most of us have to worry about that. But we can stretch out our arms in a way of saying, I see you, when we meet someone we've never met before. Or someone does something for us. I appreciate you. And if it gets really intense, I love you. Unique human qualities. But this being born again and again. Born again, I know it's a little bit a shady term, but to be born anew means I've died. I've let go of something old. I've let go of something that is weighing me down. And I have emerged from, let's say, perhaps a dark place or an old, a decrepit way of thinking. And I can turn to that deep being of Christ within myself and stretch the arms out and embrace the world. To be as old and wise as light, to be water and thirst, to be everything and to be nothing. That's why people go to one another. And in going to one another, one forms the smallest kernel of community. And that community can decide, do we open ourselves? Do we open ourselves to the whole world? Do we open ourselves to those who are like us? Do we try to combine these contradictions in ourselves? And the more we open ourselves to those who are different, those who struggle, we open ourselves to the power of Christ, and He will work together with us. Thank you for listening. Blessings on your Christmas celebration, however that may be, and see you next time.